Hello and welcome to this thought for the day. Today I'm focusing on the theme of hospitality. It's a pretty common biblical theme. For example, there's a story in Luke chapter 14, beginning at verse 1. It's often entitled Jesus Heals the Man with Dropsy, and it talks about an invitation to a meal. Here's the first couple of verses. On one occasion, when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. Just then, in front of him, there was a man who had dropsy. This is a loaded invitation indeed, and not really an occasion worthy of the term hospitality. The offering and receiving of real hospitality is something most of us are craving at present. No doubt there have been some very creative experiments in pandemic hospitality. Recently, for example, Jenny and I attended an online dinner. It was the Trinity College Theological School annual Archbishop's Dinner. The event's usually held in the Great Hall of Trinity College, with well over 100 people in attendance enjoying great food in great company. Now, that was not possible this time, so the organisers bravely proposed an online event. Determined not to be put off by the isolation of the pandemic, we got our tickets, sorted our wardrobe, and chose a discreet corner of the dining room towards which we felt reasonably comfortable about pointing a camera. The food for the evening was delivered on the day, beautifully prepared and presented, needing only to be warmed and plated for the event. The food was first class, despite being pre-prepared. The Zoom presentations from faculty members engaging, and we were even able to have more intimate conversations in what are known as breakout groups. Now, this was a valiant attempt to offer hospitality in a COVID-19 dominated time. But I hope by next year things are back to normal. No matter how good the food, how professional the organisation, how convivial the guests, there's no replacing gathering and sharing in food and conversation together. I'm sure our appreciation for this simple joy of life will stay with us long after the virus has been overcome. Jesus was keenly aware of the joy of sharing food with others. Images likening the kingdom of God to a great celebration pervade the Gospels. Jesus seemed to accept all sorts of invitations to share meals, even the undesirables of his day. It was considered socially unacceptable for Jesus to dine with the likes of sinners and tax collectors. But I get the feeling from that gospel reading from Luke that he would have been much more comfortable in their company than in the company of the hypocritical Pharisees. What would he have made of that Sabbath invitation? What would he have made of the sick person present? What would he have made of the corporate gaze fixed on him, perhaps in anticipation of a fatal error? The Pharisees would get much more than they bargained for, as in the course of this meal he enacts a healing, berates those who seek the best spots, tells them to invite the vulnerable rather than the influential or attractive, and insinuates that people of their ilk, that is, the proud and the privileged, will be forbidden entry into the kingdom of God. The healing story focuses on a man with dropsy, a disease that swells the body due to an insatiable desire to drink fluids. Apparently, the ancient philosophers used the term to describe any insatiable desire or consuming passion. When asked if it was right to heal on the Sabbath, the other guests remained silent. Jesus had already dealt with that question in a previous encounter when he healed a crippled woman in the synagogue on the Sabbath. The leader of the synagogue took Jesus aside and took him to task, saying that he could have healed the woman on any other day. But Jesus calls him to account and mentioned those comparatively trivial situations in which it was legal to act, such as watering livestock. How much more important is it to offer God's healing to a fellow human being? It's not surprising that the host and the other guests remain silent. It's also not surprising that the final verses of the chapter in which this meal story is told concentrates on the cost of discipleship. Jesus could not have made too many friends at this meal. At this time, when we most want to share food with our friends and family, we hear this story of Jesus who was willing to dine even with the Pharisees, that he might try to reach them with God's love, healing, and eternal hospitality. It was a costly invitation to him to accept. Here, as on so many occasions, the true motive was to set him up and to bring him closer to his demise. And it possibly does, but it also brings all who were there, all those who heard about it, and all who have read about the story since, down to this day, closer to the kingdom of God, and the great banquet prepared by God for all who accept the invitation. May God continually bless you.